While most people are concerned with the economic forecasts and the doom and gloom out there, I want you to get razor sharp in your focus. Right now is a great opportunity to really align yourself when it comes to retiring early and wealthy. If you're interested, keep watching. Hey guys, my name's Ravi and welcome back to Personal Finance with Ravi Sharma. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button because I talk about real estate, cryptocurrency, and financial freedom. Now, if you're interested in having a chat with our team for the buyer's agency, definitely book a session through the new website, which you'll find linked in the description below. If you're serious about taking action, then you should do it at speed, and that's something that we can help you with. Now, there are plenty of investment vehicles out there. You can go across to property, stocks, crypto, whatever else you can think of. There are so many options. But for me, based on my research and for what I want to do and achieve, based on my risk levels, property is by far the fastest way for me to retire. Now, it might be different for you, so I don't want you to get into the comment section and start arguing with me or someone else. It's just a personal choice. For me, I like to build my foundation on property because it's traditional, it's been there for ages, and I know how it works. So with that, let's continue. When we think about retirement, it's different for every single person. Now, the most common things is, Ravi, I want to have a house paid off and make about $100,000 per year. If I can have that, I've actually retired. It's actually a really good position to be in, but when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you think $100,000 in today's terms wouldn't be that much. But what you're not factoring in is that your biggest expense, being your own home, is actually paid off. So once you take that out of the equation, you're effectively saying, well, if I make $100,000 a year, I make $2,000 passive income every single week. I don't know about you, but I would have to actively think, how do I spend $2,000? Because I definitely don't spend that much every single week. And the other option you have around retiring is, look, I don't care if I have my own place. I don't really care if I'm rent vesting or traveling. As long as my passive income takes care of all of my expenses, I'm happy. Now, I'm not here to judge, so whatever option works for you, works for you. Let's just look at some tactics that we can use today to really get to that goal faster. The main difference between both of those options is that in option one, you just don't want debt. You want to get out of debt, and fair enough. And to be honest, for me personally, I'm in this boat where I don't want to have any debt because, again, I'm trying to go, how do I retire without being answerable to anyone? So if I have debt, I'm still technically answerable to the bank. But if I have no debt, it's actually a further step closer to being completely free. With option two, you may still have debt and you're comfortable with that. But let's say, for instance, you have $1 million worth of debt and all of the holding costs and expenses for that debt is maybe $30,000 a year. But if you make $130,000 a year, then it doesn't really bother you because the $30,000 goes towards the expenses and the extra 100 is what you're retiring on anyway. Equally, if you were still renting or you're traveling overseas and you're going from Airbnb to Airbnb, your expenses probably are higher, but your income is also higher. So in that case, you don't really care if you have those expenses and not have a home, as long as you're growing your wealth and have that passive income. It's safe to assume that most people are in the same boat as myself, which is I don't want to have any debt. If I have no debt and then I want to take on some more, I can think about that later. But let's get to no debt and then being able to earn $100,000. So let's reverse engineer it. In order to make $100,000 passive income, you probably need about 5 or 6 properties to get there. Now, what's interesting is that less than 0.1% of Australian investors have 6 or more properties. Why? And I get asked this quite a lot. It's like, why is that number so low? And over the years, I've come to understand why, because I was the same as you. I was asking the same question. I'm like, it's not that hard, right? You just buy 1, buy 2, buy 3, and then get to 6. It's fairly simple, but it's actually not, especially with the banks and how they've changed their regulation around what their borrowing calculators look like, how they put in buffer rates, as well as that interest rates are so high that affordability is falling and it continues to drop every month. So it is naturally going to be a lot harder to build a portfolio today than it was 30 years ago, which is why if you're taking advice from someone who did it 30 years ago, it's probably not the right way to do it. Now, more importantly, even if you have the plan and the strategy, and believe me, I've seen this, is we've sat there and I've created a strategy for someone and 3 years later, I'm in contact with them and they're still stuck in the same position. It's because a plan without action is actually worthless. It's useless. So if you go out there and say, well, I know exactly what I'm going to do at the gym, but then the next morning you actually don't go to the gym, you're freaking screwed because you didn't go to the gym, right? So a plan is nothing without that action. So if you are executing or want to execute faster at speed, which again is going to be your biggest asset, then definitely reach out for the help. Outsource the hardest part in this process. To sit there, research, call agents, figure out and do your due diligence. All that shit's boring for someone that doesn't like it, especially if you've got to take care of kids and enjoy your life because you actually have one. Unlike myself, I don't have a life because I collect Pokemon cards and make videos by myself. Anyways. So let's say you go out there and buy 6 properties to go into the top 0.1%, and each of those 6 properties are affordable properties at about 400K. Your total asset base will be worth about 2.4 million, and those 6 properties would rent for about $420 per week. Once those properties are actually paid off, you would be at your goal, which is effectively making 100,000 after all of your expenses like rates and insurances. It's not a bad place to be. 6 properties, pay it off in like 20 years and you'll get to financial freedom. Now, although I gloss over the fact that you can buy 1 property every single year for the next 4 years, it's important that you're not just going out there and saying, oh, Ravi said buy a property, I'll go buy $1 million property. He said I could buy another one next year. Clearly, I don't know what your situation is, so I don't know if you can actually do that. But what I'm referring to here is the affordable bread and butter properties. It's the stuff that I go out there, buy for myself, but also for clients. And we've been doing this for over 3 years, and we've actually outperformed the national growth average every single year for the last 3 years. And yes, although property did go up quite considerably in the first 2 years of our operation, we did still outperform that. And obviously in 2022, property prices actually came down nationally, but we still grew our portfolios. So if I was starting today and I had no properties at all, how would I make that move? We obviously have the first option of a first homeowner's grant and living in the property, which I'm clearly not a fan of. You should definitely go check out this video if you're on the fence about it. Or we can go out there and invest. Now, if you go out there and you've got no idea about property, or you've watched a few videos and said, hey, this sounds like a good idea, it'll still take you a good 6 months before you get your research down pat and actually execute. Because you can, again, read everything you want, do online courses, do whatever you need to, unless you get on the phone and put the action in, it doesn't mean anything. So actually getting used to that process, building enough confidence to negotiate effectively and finding the right value in the property, it's going to take about 6 months if you do it properly. Now, for some, it'll take less, some it'll take more, depending on your own skills currently, but also the time that you have. My first option would be go and get my finances sorted. Now, instead of me going to the bank, I'm outsourcing that to a broker so they can do all the heavy lifting. I'm outsourcing again. I want speed. So I go out there, I speak to a mortgage broker, get them to start the paperwork straight away. Once I got my pre-approval, again, I go straight to speed, which means I'm going to go and hit up Search Property, being my buyer's agency, and I go ahead and use their services and research to find the right property. I'd buy a $400,000 brick home in Australia, renting for about $420 per week minimum. And again, I use conservative numbers. So in this deal, it's probably renting closer to about $450 to $480 a week. But after just 1 year, it would have grown by $48,000 if we use last year's average growth rate, which was about 12% here at Search Property. So at that point, you could top up the loan and then be able to take out $43,000, which would mean that you would only need another $32,000 from savings to be able to buy your second property. You can start seeing how one leads to another and how they quickly move together to be able to get you to the 6 properties. Now, why it becomes easier is because we've just used the example of 1 property worth about $400,000. If you now go into year 2 and you've got 2 of those properties, well, now your asset base is worth about $800,000 to $850,000. Now, 7 to 12% growth on that is going to be significantly more. And that's how you keep compounding that growth, which is why when you start in real estate, it feels like it takes forever to really get momentum and really build out that portfolio. But what I suggest to you is to sit down, extrapolate that out over the next 10 to 15 years, and you're going to find out how easy it is to retire with property. And that could depend on if you want to sell your properties and pay down all your debt, or to go out there and actually keep accumulating your wealth by having the right assets, right cash flow to really bolster up retirement. Now, years 3 and 5 will continue the same process, but at greater speed. Again, that's why it's important having the right team around you. Have your accountant, have your mortgage broker, have your buyer's agent, have them all working together to be able to get you from point A to point B. An example of this was someone that came to us, and he actually had about $260,000 in the bank account ready to go in and purchase property. What he was going to do was just buy a place for himself, but he was single and he was like, I don't really need a house right now, and I'd rather live closer to the city. So instead, we went out there, we purchased 3 properties around Australia, and he's at a position now where his portfolio was worth 1.3, and it just continues to grow anywhere between $100,000 to $130,000 per year. That equity allows him more choice. Again, he's probably going to have to now wait as his borrowing has now capped out, but if he now borrows with his partner or sibling, he can now start building out that portfolio even faster. It's definitely not easy to go out there and just go, oh, I'm going to buy 6 properties, I'll just go do it. That's why I suggest you having the right team. But even then, having the right team, they can't go and think for you. They can't stop you from looking at the news or speaking to some average people, getting average results, but giving you such great advice. They can't stop that. What you want to do is get in the right headspace. So if you find yourself in conversations with people that are just useless or really negative, just cut them out of your life. I know it's easier said than done, but the reality is that's what you need. If you want to retire early, you are trying to achieve the 0.01% life. Most people will continue working all the way for the next 40 to 45 years and still not be able to retire comfortably. What you're looking at doing is saying, how do I do it in 10 years? And how do I do it on my own terms? It's very difficult. So I suggest you get getting educated, getting in the right spaces, having the right conversations is going to be the key for you to retire faster in today's economy. Time in the market is definitely key. So if you can go out there and buy the right assets, long term, it's going to save you so much headache by not having made those mistakes that others have. And you can go out and grow your wealth with passive income and still maintain your lifestyle. If you're interested in having a strategy session or having a discovery call, which is free with our team, you'll find details in the description box below. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys.